Hello, everyone, and welcome to Go Ahead Tell Me. My name is Carly, and I'm super excited for today's guest, Kiana Simmons. She's the founder of Hero Tent, and I'm really excited to hear about the work she's been doing. So, Kiana, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with Hero Tent?
Yes, of course. And thank you so much for having me. And to all of the listeners, I apologize for my voice. It's a little raspy. Um, but yeah, my name is Kiana, and I'm the president of Hero Tent. Hero stands for Human Empowerment Radical Optimism. A big, I guess, a generalization of the work that we do is we're optimistic. Our society can be better, but we understand it will take systemic restructuring, systemic change to achieve those goals. So I got started with this work last summer, the summer of 2020, during the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor protests. I was, very moved by the story of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and I took to the streets. And this was the first time in my life that I had ever done so. So I was not experienced in protesting and organizing at all. I actually went to the demonstrations alone,
Oh,
and I
wow.
was in San Jose on the first day of protesting. And this is when we took the freeway. We went on the 101 freeway,
Mm.
and it was pretty crazy. I've never done anything like that in my life, and that was one of the main reasons for my further involvement. But then also later that day, after we got back to City Hall from the freeway, the police there, they had lit up the entire block with flash grenades, rubber bullets, and tear gas. So I actually got
Oh,
tear gas for the first time in my life
oh my
um,
goodness.
by the police department. And ever since that, like combination of like the success of taking the freeway and the firsthand experience of police brutality, that's what led me to continue to come out to the protests. But this time, I was determined to go out as direct protest against San Jose PD. Right
Mm.
before it was like and it still was like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor solidarity, but now it was okay. This police department is not good either. And ever
Hmm.
since then, a lot has changed for me. I've been doing a Hero Tent was born shortly after that, and my involvement in the community grew, and my research into the police department also grew.
Mm.
And yes, it's true. This police department is really bad. It's awful, and it was that first experience, that first day of protesting was really what changed my life. To become a Hero Tent member, to become a community organizer. Yeah, I guess that's how I got started.
Wow, that is I like regret not being able to be in any of those protests, but to hear that like you experienced that with the tear gas and everything and it just like made you want to go out and fight even harder is so inspiring. Um and so now Hero Tent is like you guys are still doing protests all the time, correct?
Well, we're trying. It's been difficult as things open up again and the
Uh
pandemic restrictions are loosened. I believe that the summer 2020 protests became so big in part because of the pandemic,
mhm.
and with people kind of getting back into their normal lives, it's not as easy to host a
Mhm.
protest, especially one with numbers. So
Mhm.
yes, we still host protests. Yes, we still go to protests, but it's not as frequent or as, for lack of better words, spicy as they used to be.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember when the protests were going on last summer, thinking like the pandemic, while it was devastating in so many ways, it also like did open up for these protests and to really bring attention to it as well. So I can
Mm-hmm.
imagine that now that people are back to work and their focus is on other things, that it's kind of probably hard to start organizing these things and getting people to get involved now.
Yeah, that's exactly the issue at the moment.
And you guys do with Hero Tent, you guys were like bringing food and everything out to protest as well and getting local businesses involved, correct?
Yeah, so Hero 10 is a mutual aid organization. So we facilitate those essential items. And for us, how we got started was we go to protests and people would be out there all day in the hot sun,
Mm.
and there would be very little food and water. Some people couldn't afford it. Some people didn't have time to go and get it. Or if they did go get it, they wouldn't come back to the protest. So we would
Mm.
actually facilitate those resources for people so they could stay and engage in their activity longer. So we bring water, we bring food, and often a lot of restaurants would donate to us, or we get
Mm.
someone who would buy like 100 sandwiches, and we would distribute those sandwiches to our community. And that is something Hero Tent still does. It has kind of turned into that for sure. Like we still do those resources for other people at their protests. We also have taken it a step further. So Hero Tent, in partnership with Black Outreach, we created our service project called Feed the Block. And
Mm.
every single Saturday, we're going out in our community and we're cooking breakfasts for people and then
Oh wow.
distributing them to people. Yeah, it's pretty great.
That's amazing. And this is right now it's just in the Bay Area, correct?
Yes, it would be amazing if we could expand, but at this time, we still got a lot of work to do here.
Yeah, well, I was gonna ask because this is such a I've never heard of an organization doing things like what you guys are doing. And it's really cool and such a like necessary thing, I think, what you're doing and bringing the food and water out to people at protests just to make it more um like possible for people to be out there. And
Hmm.
so I'm sure there are people listening who are outside of the Bay Area or even outside of the state. Do you have any like advice for them trying to get something similar to this started or anything like that that people can get involved in their own communities?
Yeah, so I would say just do it. That's how I did it. Just if you feel like there's a need in the community and you feel like there's a gap in service, then I just say just start doing it. Start organizing with like-minded people. Um, I didn't know anybody who joined Hero Tent until I met them at the protests.
Oh
So it
wow.
was just that act of service that brought us together. And it's actually really funny. Like I'm living with some of those same people now. Like we started off as strangers. We met at the protest. We joined this organization that was kind of just like let's get together and give people water. Sorry. And now we have a thriving organization and now we live together and now like we're friends. So I would say just do it. Um, and worry about some of those details later. It is a little maybe not the typical advice you normally would get, but I think if you're passionate and you see a need, there's nothing stopping you from just trying it out and seeing how far you can go.
I love that. Yeah, and I can tell like or on your social media like Instagram, Twitter, like how passionate you are and the people who are involved are just so passionate and I can tell it's that passion that's gotten you guys to where you are because you guys have really grown quite a bit. You have almost like 7,000 followers I think on Instagram.
Yes, we do.
That is so like it's just so great to see something start out as just like one person wanting to do this and building a community like that. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's been a really crazy ride, and I've learned a lot about myself, how to run an organization, which is something I never thought that I would ever have to do in my life. But you just learn a lot about yourself, your friends, your family, as you progress through these things.
Now, before you got started in this, were you like involved in social change or justice or anything like that beforehand, or was it just this last year that really like pushed you into this?
It was really just this last year. Before this, I was working in the service industry as a bartender and a server.
Oh, cool.
I was really about that hustle life. I was just trying to make some money. Living in the Bay Area is really expensive. So for me, that
Mm.
was what my priorities were. Um, but outside of that, I have always been interested and also like actively a part of service projects.
Mm.
I'm from a small town up north where there's a really high population of unhoused people, and I would always volunteer at the shelters there, making people food and whatnot, things like that. But I didn't understand the true importance of that work until now. I feel like as a child, I didn't really get it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have always had that want to serve, that want to help people. But it wasn't until this past year I actually like formulated like why that is and like why it's important to help people and what it actually means to do so. So
Mm-hmm.
more or less, yeah, this past year has really been the start or the
The
start of this.
catalyst.
Yes.
What has been like the most powerful moment for you through all of this? Because I'm sure you've seen so much in the last year with this work that you're doing.
Yeah, that's really hard actually. There's been a lot of stuff that I've seen, I've gone through. Um, I don't know if I can pick just one, but I'll try. The thing that comes to mind that's probably the most optimistic is the time that my group and I we went up to Portland to give protesters their PPE. So we had purchased and gathered materials like gas masks and helmets, and we were just going to drive up and distribute those to those protesters. And at the time, it was all anybody was talking about was the
Mm-hmm.
Portland protests.
Mm-hmm.
And we just were like, let's do it. And so we did. And while we were there, it became very real that that environment was is unbelievable to actually
Mm-hmm.
go up against like the actual government, like the feds, the type of material that they have, the ability for them to just do whatever they wanted to. I saw them like cars on fire. I saw them like run with like like guns, like guns as big as their body, like run and chase people. They
Mm-hmm.
strategically would attack people like in dark places like the park. They turned off the power on purpose so people could barely see. They would
Mm-hmm.
tear gas people at large amounts. So just like the full, not even the full, but just like the scale of the brutality, and how easy it was for them to just do that. And it was like a little taste of what it could be like, right? When we're
Mm-hmm.
actually talking about standing up to these oppressive systems. Yeah, Portland was crazy experience. Just seeing the little bit of the force that they used against the protesters, people who um, were not equipped to deal with any of the things that they had in response. They would defend the federal building, but actually cause a lot of harm to people. There were mothers out there. There were a lot of other people, but you know, like the moms. What were they called? Moms for the yellow shirt people. I'm forgetting what they're called, but you know, they made like a very like visible stance of like, you know, moms for Black lives, and it was
Mm-hmm.
really interesting and like captivating. Um, and yeah, they shot one of those moms in the head with a rubber bullet, and I
Oh my
remember
God.
walking her through the park. It's dark. We're all tear gassed, and she's just like bleeding, and she's like looking for her friend, and I'm like, I'm trying to help her out, but it's just like impossible to see anything. So yeah, it was a really awful, terrifying experience. But we were there for a few days, and on I think it was the third day we were there. Um, this is where the optimistic part of the story comes in instead of all this bleakness. But it was like the third day we were there, and at this point, I had kind of gotten a bit accustomed to their, like, you know, what was going on, like their tactics, and finding like the rhythm within the crowd of strangers. And I will never forget. It was really amazing to see. It was a smaller group of people. I want to say maybe about like 100, and this was in comparison to like the thousands of people that were there
Mm-hmm.
just days before. So it was about 100 or so people, and it was people equipped with um, what are they called? Those like wind things, leaf blowers, There was like dads with leaf blowers there. It was people with umbrellas, people with hockey sticks, people with cones, like traffic cones, and people with gas masks and shields. And that group of 100 or so people with like those very basic, seemingly random equipment, they would go. And, like, I was a part of this group, and like we held our ground, and the feds, they just backed off, and they backed off for the rest of the night. And they were way more than way more of them than there were of us. Um, but we just like didn't want to leave. We wanted to continue occupying the street that we were, and that rebellious, like, this is like our land. You cannot make us move. And just like the height of the protests, and just the height of the feeling, and then the momentum, and it actually had worked. It had paid off. And this is after seeing what they were capable of doing, and still so many people stayed and just decided to hold the street. And for what? Like, it didn't actually mean anything. There's no point in staying in the street where you can potentially be like very seriously injured. But it did mean something. It was like, we can actually stand up to these oppressive systems that are fully, way more funded than we are, that have way more equipment than we do, and can and will and have hurt and killed people just for less, right? Like Brianna. So I guess for me, that was like a really powerful moment of just like this like really strange um, time and an experience to just like be in a movement with people and experience just like together.
Yeah, wow. That gave me chills because that sounded so traumatic and terrifying, that like first experience there. And then to like
Yes,
be
it was
able
awful.
to, yeah, I can't imagine. Like I was thinking like, oh my goodness, the trauma that must have caused, even like now, I'm sure that's still like a terrifying thing. I can't imagine being involved in something like that. Just
Right.
sounds
And
terrifying.
that things like that happen, not that scale happen, but like things like that happen all the time. Like, there are
Yeah.
people in the United States, in every city in the United States, including San Jose, who are traumatized and continue to be re-traumatized by the police. Police is incredibly equipped for who knows what reason. Well, I mean, we know the reason, but like they have all of this equipment that they improperly use, and they use like flash grenades, they use tear gas, they use their helicopters, they use so many other tools to traumatize people in neighborhoods, predominantly Black and brown neighborhoods. So the Portland experience was like seen on a much wider scale, and a lot more people who normally aren't traumatized were traumatized by that. But that kind of experience it happens all of the time in every city
Yeah.
in this country.
It's devastating.
It,
It's like it's such a like it's just hard to imagine that. I mean it because it is, and we're seeing it, and we saw it so much last summer, but it's just my brain like can't wrap around the fact that we live in this day and age and this kind of thing is still happening, and it's still such a big fight. And it's like sickening to think that these are still like we still have to fight for human rights, and it just is so disturbing. And like people like you and doing this work that you're doing is just so incredible. I can't say it enough. um
yeah, thank you. And it's a movement. It's the people who came before us, and it's the
mhm.
people who are going to be here after us that continue to to do this work, because it doesn't start or end here.
Right, exactly. um the so I know we talked a little bit about like people who outside of the area wanting to get involved and starting their own projects in their own communities, but do you have any like this fight, obviously like we just said, is still a very real thing. And do you have like anything that people who are listening that may not be able to go out and protest, and um like who don't have access to that, what they can do, if there's can they get involved with you guys somehow, like virtually over online or anything like that?
Yeah, people can for sure get involved with us virtually. We have a Discord where we use to talk about a variety of things. We share like local news articles about what's going on in the city. There's usually like an ask of people to do, like a call to action, or just like a more regular, like for example, we do a lot of in the form of info
Oh.
or, or newsletters, and we need people to help with those. Like, a lot of work to do research, to put the graphics together, and then also to engage the community. And all of that can be done virtually, among other things, right? Like if your interests are not that and you still want to be involved, there's a lot to do. We talk a lot about like how do we move forward in this movement of like divesting and abolishing the police, and
Mhm.
that is something that will take a lot of people coming together. And if you're interested generally in that conversation, there's a place for that within Hero Tent, even if you don't live here or you're not able to attend in-person things. There's definitely space for people, like-minded individuals like that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good to know because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to want to, after listening to this and hearing you and your passion about it, want to be involved in one way or another.
Yes, we love the new volunteers. Please join us. We're really fun.
It sounds like it. I was looking at your Instagram. I mean, I've been following you for a couple months now, but like it looks like you guys are doing all these like really amazing things. And while it's also like a lot of it can be really bleak, like what you experienced in Portland, you guys also seem to have a lot of fun and are doing fun events like the art in the park and things like that.
Yeah, and like that's also something I'm very passionate about. I love the idea, the vibe, the goal of art in the park, communal art therapy, getting together as a community. We have free food for people, free beverages, and people can just participate in just being together, and hopefully in a way that like encourages some kind of therapy, feeling some
Hmm.
kind of therapization, and putting people in a not so what's the word I'm looking for? The tension filled space. Like it's just chill,
Hmm.
just chill vibes.
Yeah.
We listen to music, and that's like because it is like it is really extremely bleak and like sad. A lot of the time, a lot of the work that we do, the reason why we got involved or Hero Chat even
Mhm.
exists is a sad reason. But
Right.
in order to go forward, we need to care for ourselves, we need to care for each other, and we hope to continue to do that through Art in the Park and also other ways. Like we want to encourage people to come out and just be happy in community.
Yeah, and I can imagine like too stuff like that, like the just relaxing together too. It's got to bring people together in a way that's a little bit different than the intense protests too. Like just making a community out of it where people can feel safe.
Yeah, exactly. And just getting to know each other as well, just as people. Like,
Hmm.
it's a lot to like, on ACAB mode and always be like, so fiery and upset, and in that mind state. So it is good to see people outside of that a little bit, who they are as a person outside of the work that they do. So it's great. I
Right.
love it.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for not only joining me today, but for everything that you've started. And I can see it growing as I've followed you even for the last couple of months. I've watched it grow and how people are getting involved. And the next time I'm in the Bay Area, I'm going to be sure to look out for what events you guys have going on because it's amazing and it's really, really cool to be able to talk to you and learn about your organization. Thank you so much.
Yay! Thank you for hosting this. I appreciate it so much. I hope that you can come out next time. Thank you for following and thank you for interviewing me.
Thanks again to Kiana and to everybody listening. I hope you go check out Hero Tent to find out more about how you can get involved with this incredible organization. Please be sure to follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our show, and we'll talk to you all soon.